All right, scholars. So I know that we're kind of changing it up and not taking a quiz like we normally do on Thursdays. And the reason is I just wanted us to get a little bit more practice before we took in a quiz, and because I found some pretty fun games. So I do want to just let you know that this will probably be like, no. So we will go over some of the things that we've been talking about this week, but then I'll also show you, kind of similar to ELA, there'll be different sections in the form where I'll have little videos of how to play each game and how to answer the questions. So thought we would kind of switch it up since we know that this is one of our last silent excitement lessons for this school year, because next week is the last week of school. So let's get going with the review lesson for today. Tomorrow you will have the routines video, and then you'll just have a quiz, and then all you have to do is make up your assignments and you can play some Prodigy. So let's rock and roll for today though. So I'm noticing that some friends are kind of forgetting the basics of fractions. So I thought, why don't we go back and watch probably one of my favorite videos? I know, weird, it's not brain pop, but I actually really love this video because it goes through the steps of how to find the point of on a number line that is a fractional amount, so that doesn't go to one whole. So while you're watching this video, I want you to pay attention because we're actually going to make our own anchor chart after this. We're going to write sort of our own steps because I know that when we write things, we actually tend to remember them. Like scientists have proven this. So first, let's just pay attention to the video so we can remember the catchy little song of how to find a point on the number line.
Find where to write 1/2 on the number line. She said,
first draw a line with 2 arrows.
Then she sang a song. Here's how it goes. 0 to 1 is the whole that we split apart. The denominator tells us into how many parts. Make a line that starts from 0 to the first mark. And 1/2 is what you'll find when you get that far. My stuffed animal can't talk, but I thought I heard.
Hey Ben, on the number line, where's 1/3?
I said first draw a line with 2 arrows. And hey, I know a cool tune. Here's how it goes. 0 to 1 is the whole that we split apart. The denominator tells us into how many parts. Make a line that starts from 0 to the first mark. And 1/3 is what you'll find when you get that far. Then I texted my friend, what's to be done when the numerator isn't 1? She said,
let's try to find 5 over 9 on the number line in like no time. Simply partition 9 parts from 0 to 1. Starting from 0, count 5, and at 5 9ths we arrive.
Ooh. 0 to 1 is the whole that we split apart. The denominator tells us into how many parts. Make a line that starts from 0 to the 5th mark. And 5 9ths is what you'll find when you get that far.
Let's use the number line to describe this pie. First count the total pieces, there are 5. 5's the denominator, all the parts. So 5 goes underneath the fraction bar. This number line goes from 0 to 2, but the fraction's less than 1, so here's what to do. Make 5 equal spaces from 0 to 1. Now the final step before we're done. The numerator is the one piece that's mine. After the first space, I'll write 1/5 of the line. Just remember this one tip in your minds. Always count the spaces, never the lines.
0 to 1 is the whole that we split apart. The denominator tells us into how many parts. Make a line that starts from 0 to the first mark. And 1/5 is what you'll find when you get that far.
When you get that far, yeah. When you get that far, yeah.
Visit numberrock.com for
Alrighty, so using that very catchy tune, let's quickly write out the steps that we're going to use. We're going to make our own little anchor chart for how to find number lines. So using that song, let's make sort of our own checklist to help us remember how to identify the point on a number line when it's a fractional amount. So today is May 14th, 2020. And the reason we're doing this is because some friends are continuing on their practice to not give me complete answers. Like, we're going to go over a question that a lot of us got wrong yesterday because we were not giving a complete fractional answer. So let's just make sure that we are remembering all of the steps. So if we remember step 1, so first I want you to write how to find fractions on a number line. We know that we always give things titles. So step 1, if you remember in the song, it says step 1 was 0 to 1 is the whole that we split apart. So we need to find the whole. So I'm going to write find the whole. And then what I want you to do is next to that, to remind yourself, draw a quick little number line. Mark a 0, mark a 1. And then I want you to draw your line like this to note that this is one whole. So if you remember, the song said 0 to 1 is the whole that we split apart. So we need to find the whole as step 1. Then step 2, the song told us the denominator tells us into how many parts. So to find the denominator, if we don't know the fraction, we need to count the parts. So number 2, we're going to count the parts, and not just all the parts, right? It's only the parts between 0 and 1. So I want you to write between 0 and 1 whole. And I want you to put a big box on between so that we can remind ourselves it's just between 0 and 1. So we're just going to count any spaces between 0 and 1. So to remind yourself of this step, I want you to draw another number line, make it 0, put your whole on there. And then I want you to break it into 3 parts. We know something broken into 3 parts means that each part is a third. Each part is a third. Each part is a third. Good. So we're going to split it into 3 equal parts. Do your best. And then what I want you to do is to show that you are counting the parts between 0 and 1, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. So then you're going to circle 3, and I want you to draw a little line and say thirds. So that you know that you are counting the equal parts between 0 and 1 to figure out what the denominator is. Because we only count to 1, so that we know these are thirds. Next to thirds, I want you to write denominator equals 3. That way you help remind yourself step 2 is when we find our denominator. Now for step 3, we know that the song said, so we know the next part it said, when you only are looking for when there's a 1 in the numerator, you only have to jump 1 spot. But then it reminded us if there's not a 1 in the numerator, or if the point is past that first part, we just count to find how many parts we have traveled on the number line. Now we know that each of those parts has a name. So in this case, we'd be counting by thirds if we were using the same number line. So we know step 3, you're basically finding the numerator. You're counting the parts until the point. So we count the parts until the point. So recreate your number line real quick. We're going to split it into thirds again. So there should be 3 spaces. And then I want you to put a point on the second tick mark after 0. So we know in this case, the denominator is still thirds because there are 1, 2, 3 pieces between 0 and 1. Now we need to find our numerator by counting the parts until the point. So we would say 1, 2. There are 2 parts. We have traveled 2 parts across our number line. We know each of those parts is a third. So we know this point right here is 2/3 of the distance between 0 and 1. This can also totally work for numbers that are larger than 1 whole. So let's put that on our number line just in case to remind us. Let's say 0, line up your 1 whole. I just brought my points down, split it into 3 parts, and then past 1 whole, split it into another couple of parts. I'll move my video so you can see. So we know, again, 0 and 1, 1, 2, 3. We stop here because we are at 1 whole. Remember, we find the whole first. The song told us the whole is what we split apart. We split it into 3 parts. Say our point was right here. So we know a 3 is going to go in our denominator because between 0 and 1 there are 3 parts. Then we just count how many parts we have until the point. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3. So we know that point is at 4/3 on our number line. We know we can also think about this as we have traveled 1 whole. We've traveled our 3 parts out of our 3 to make a whole. So we have that 1 whole, and then there's 1 extra part that we've gone. We know that 1 extra part is 1/3. So we can say we traveled 1 whole and 1/3 of another whole. These mean the exact same thing. So now that we made our little anchor chart, let's use it to solve a question that quite a few of us got wrong yesterday. So I went ahead and set up my screen so that you can see the anchor chart we just made. Find the whole, count the parts between 0 and 1 whole, count the parts until the point. And let's use it to solve this question that a lot of us got tricked on. And the reason a lot of us got tricked on was you told me that the answer was 3. And I know what you mean by that. You were telling me that Buffy jumped 3 parts, but she did not jump 3 yards. When you tell me she jumped 3, you were telling me that she jumped 3 yards. That would be 3 of this distance. Did she jump that far? Like it wouldn't even go past, like I can't even annotate it. No, she didn't jump that far. She jumped 3 parts. We need to tell our reader of our answer how much those parts are, because 3 and the distance, 3 yards and the distance that she actually jumped, 3 parts of a yard are very different. So let's follow our steps based on our anchor chart to correctly solve this problem. So step 1, find the whole. We know that 0 to 1 is the whole that we cut apart. So we would find the whole. I see 0. I see 1. So I found my whole. Now we count the parts between 0 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because there are 5 parts, there are 5 parts between 0 and 1. We know each of these parts here is 1/5. We know if there are 5 pieces in 1 whole, each piece is a fifth. Each piece is a fifth. So we would count these as fifths. First, I'm going to double check my anchor chart. Oops, it tells me I need to write that number in the denominator first. So I know that she jumped some amount of fifths. Now step 3, I need to count the parts, or I need to count the fifths to see just how many she jumped. So I'm going to start at 0, 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. So Buffy jumped 3/5 of the distance between 0 and 1. So we can use our anchor chart to make sure we do all of the steps. So let's go to our form and fill in the different steps. We're going to break them apart so we know what we are doing. So I made the questions replicate or mimic or be the same as the steps that we do in our anchor chart so we can start practicing them in the correct order. So step 1, how many equals pieces are between 0 and 1? Because we know our first step, our first step is to find the whole. We find the whole. So we find 0, 1. Now we know step 2 is we count the parts. We count the equal parts between 0 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 equal parts between 0 and 1, which answers our question. We know that that also could have asked us what is the denominator for each of these parts, because this is a fifth, this is a fifth, so on and so forth. So if it asks you what's going to be in the denominator of each part, we know that we can also know that it's going to be 5. So now that we figured out how many pieces are between 0 and 1, we figured out the denominator. We know that the denominator not only tells us how many pieces are in one whole, but it also tells us the name, the name of each part or each piece. So if there are 5 equal pieces, 5 equal parts between 0 and 1, what is each part called? When I am counting, what am I going to count by? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to pick an option here. Am I going to count by halves, fourths, eighths, or fifths? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you think it's half, show me 1. If you think it's fourth, 2, 8, show me 3, fifth, show me 4. Ready, go. Yep, the correct answer is fifths. Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal spaces between 0 and 1, we will count by fifths because each of these parts is called 1/5. So now that we know what each part is called or the amount of each piece on our number line, we know that it is a fifth. Now we need to know how many of those parts, how many fifths did Buffy jump? So how many fifths of a yard did she jump? So we're going to do step 3 of our anchor chart. We're going to work on this guy. Count 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. So we know that there are 5 equal pieces between 0 and 1 whole. She jumped 3 of them. So Buffy jumped 3/5 of the number line or of 1 yard. She did not jump 3 yards. She jumped 3/5 of 1 yard. So she jumped 3 parts of the 5 parts that we broke our number line into, that we broke our yard into. All right, using our anchor chart over here. So using this anchor chart, I want you to solve question 4. I'm going to give you 1 minute to solve question 4 using these steps. So you're going to find the whole, count the parts between 0 and 1. That is your denominator. Then you will count the parts until the point. That is your numerator. That is the amount of pieces, the amount of parts you have. So you're going to have 1 minute to go ahead and solve this. About 30 seconds. All right, that was 1 minute. So let's use our resource to solve this question. So step 1, step 1, we find our whole. So we find where 0 is, we find where 1 is. Miss Cupp was nice to us and gave us a number line that had just 0 and 1 whole on it. Now we count the parts, we count the parts between 0 and 1. We know that this is our denominator. So you can go ahead and on your paper, you should have drawn a fraction bar so you could get ready to write your denominator. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice I did not stop when I got to the point because we always count all the spaces in our whole. That way we know when we count for the point, when we get to step 3, we know what we are counting by. So there are 6 parts in my whole. There are 6 spaces between 0 and 1. So I know that each of these is going to be a 6th. So with a 6th, we have a 6 in our denominator. Now it is my time to do step 3 and count the parts until the point. So I'm going to go 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6. So because he went 5 parts, because he traveled the distance of 5 parts, we know that 5 goes in our numerator because our numerator tells us how many pieces we have or the distance we have traveled. So Mac traveled 5/6 of a mile. So you should have typed in 5/6 into that space here. All right, now it is our time for the word of the day. Our word of the day will be a little bit of a brain break, even though we will be playing lots of games in the rest of the lesson. Our word of the day for today is sun. So today, similar to yesterday, I thought we would take a little brain break by learning how to draw a sun, since it's almost summer and what reminds us of summer but the sun, using the word sun. Let's check it out. So step 1, we have to write the word sun, put some kind of big spaces between the letters. Then we're going to draw a circle around it, connect it to your S. Do your best. Now it looks like we're going to use the top of our S, a for the sun wave, and keep drawing sort of fins that you can click on. We're just going to keep drawing some of these fins around the sun. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just kind of fun. It makes all the waves, and you connect your life. Mine kind of like you guys are. Then you turn this into these sunglasses, it looks like. And we got color in the sunglasses, of course. Make a sun out of the word sun. So that's our brain break for today. So you know that the word of the day is sun. We know this was 5/6. Now let's move on in our form.